Hey guys, we're going to be going over today how to buy a 1976 or 1980 Dodge Aspen or Plymouth Volare and what you need to look for before making said purchase. This is Dutch Guy's Garage. Now, there's many things to keep in mind for getting into this kind of genre of cars. Is one main thing, the most importantly of all you need to know is nobody makes diddly squat for these. There is nothing aftermarket support. So, if you're looking at a rust bucket in the Midwest, I wish you luck. Because to tell you the truth, there ain't much for sheet metal out there, and it's really getting small on what you can find, and the prices are pretty high for what you need to buy. So, yeah, that's going to turn a lot of people off. But for those that are stubborn, like myself, well, here's some of the things you probably need to look for before picking up just any car. Alright, let's talk about the problem that plagues more of these cars than anything else. What makes a lot of the older Mopar generation not like them? Rust.
Rust coloration.
Now, you got to remember back in 1977, they issued the fender recall on these. Actually, the tops of the fenders, right around this general area here, were actually rotting out when the cars were about a year and a half new. So, yeah, I started to make a couple million fenders to fix this issue. But that's why a lot of the Mopar generation does not like them. That is not where the issues stop, though. These were made out of very poor metal quality, so they were not known to last, unfortunately. That's why there's not a lot of them left. And so that's something you got to keep in mind. We'll use this car as kind of a general template for what you don't want to buy. Now, as you can see, that's got a sizable rocker hole and quarter panel hole for a car that nobody makes quarters or rockers for. And that's why you really got to pay attention, because these quarters, if you could find a set, you'll pay at minimum $1,200 to maybe $1,800. Depends on where you're going. But and the other spot you want to look at, especially, is back here. This is a common problem throughout all the years, just where condensation builds, especially on the 43 and the Super Coupe cars, because that's where all the road debris is just going in that area. So, well, let's look at the main problem behind these. Well, the very first thing that you're going to want to do when you're going to look at your F-body of choice is you're going to want to lay down on the driver's side, reach underneath, and just grab that frame rail. Just grab that subframe.
Grab it. Let's grab it, Indy.
I'd say that most of these cars, I'd say 85% of them, need framework. That's the unfortunate truth of it. I've had to do frame rails on almost every one of our cars except one. And some of our cars are from down south. So the rust does not even escape the southern vehicles. Especially I found the AC cars are more prone to having the passenger side rot out, because where they put the condensation to for the AC cars just so happened to be the frame rail. So all the condensation from your AC down south is going in your frame. So that's a good spot. We'll just use that. That's what Chrysler said. So yeah, look at the frame rails. Look at the floors. Now moving on to more of the rust problems. They did change steel manufacturers, right around the late 77. So the 78 to the 80 models tend to be a little bit better for rust. The normal cutoff that I normally use is the 76 through 77.5. Those cars actually had a different gas tank. And that gas tank is what we call the hump tank, which took an entirely different trunk pan. And another downfall of those early cars, besides being plagued with rust, is the fact that no one makes a replacement gas tank for those cars. And the hump tanks are known to rot out. So there's many people out there with a 76 through 77.5 hump tank car that either have to go fuel cell or not drive their project for many years because they can't find a gas tank. And the only other solution really is to cut your whole trunk out and put a 77.5 through 80 trunk pan in. There isn't a lot of people that want to do that. That's a lot of spot welds. So another thing to keep in mind when you're going to look at an F-body. Another thing we should consider is the M55 TBar option, which gave you a nice T-top roof, which is I don't have any examples of because I got rusty cars and I have not bought the T-top because it's the rustiest of cars. It was very rare to find a T-top that didn't have T-top seals that leaked and made the floors bad. And if you do, you're a lucky soul. You're a lucky soul. So usually when the floors go, the frame rails aren't far behind them, unfortunately. But there is a rare bird out there that you might actually get lucky and have a nice T-bar that came inside. But the problem is nobody makes the T-top seals. So you gotta either retrofit a universal seal or try and use a Camaro T-top seal, which you gotta cut, and it's a lot of work to make that removable roof work. Now the T-bar was not the only problem child. Chrysler also decided to put another hole in a different kind of roof, and that was the factory moonroof option. It's a nice thing that you could just turn a dial and scroll the roof back, and it was neat. It had a steel panel on top. But just like any other hole in the roof that Chrysler decided to do, it leaks also. So another thing to keep in mind if you find a moonroof, T-top, or aftermarket sunroof. Gosh, do I hate aftermarket sunroofs. I don't know why dealerships or J.C. Whitney or anybody else decided that those needed to exist, but I've never seen one that doesn't leak, unfortunately. But all right, moving on from the rust debacle, let's talk under the hood problems. So now, one of the main things besides the rust issues is the cowl/firewall issues, especially those guys that are living out east with the big pine trees, the pine needles, that just want to fill cowls with needles, rot them out from the inside out. So let's just take a look at that a little bit. Alright, now we'll take this car. Now, as you can see, going up into here, we have our cowl drains. There's three of them. There's one here, one in the center, and one on the outside. Now, there's not a big opening here. So once these clog with mouse nest, pine needles, all of that, this whole big box fills with water and moisture, and then rots out the seam going all the way around. So that will contribute to allowing water to leak into your floors, and just, yeah, it'll just keep making issues worse. So that's something you need to look at. Look at just this whole seam. And then another thing is there is your fresh air vents that are right in this general area on both sides. They like to, when this clogs up, the water just sits along those and rots that seal out or rots the metal out around it. So then that's how you get more water under your dash. But first thing you do if we get one of those, or when I get one of these cars, I clean those out. Gotta be done first thing. So, but yeah, that's really the only real problem child under the hood besides the radiator support. Now the slant 6 and some 318 cars, actually came with a 22-inch radiator support. So it'll only take a 22-inch radiator. Now this is a factory 360 car. So some of the 318s and some of the 360, or some 318s and all 360 cars actually got the 26-inch radiator support. So you actually get a 26-inch radiator. Now this, it makes it a lot more friendly because you can actually order, like this is a Champion 73 to 76 dart radiator that bolts in using all the factory holes. Now, if you go over to the smaller radiator support cars, which we have one over here, it's a little bit different except for, as you can see, that opening is smaller. Now you can cut out these mounts and make some things work. This was more of a generic build when I built this one, but you actually use a 71 to 72 Demon radiator now from Champion, and it'll bolt right in the car. We found that out when we built our station wagon. Well, let's start on the inside. So, most importantly of all, interior-wise, especially for you southern guys, these dash pads, they are starting to remake them. ABC Parts is making them, but finding originals is getting hard. And then headliners. These are made out of multiple layers of cardboard, finally glued together with the finest dollar store general that Chrysler could buy in 1978. So, what happens to cardboard after 43 years of getting wet? It turns to dust, and it warps. This one's actually really nice, but this car's nicer than most. So, if you got a broken headliner or missing headliner, that sucks. It's going to be hard to find. Seats. Now, these traditional high backs are actually carried over from the previous generations of cars, but things like the seat tracks and stuff like that are going to cost you a little bit. Center consoles. These are made out of foam. They like to crack a whole bunch. Those are hard to find. So, something to keep in mind. You might be running around with a cracked center lid, or you might be running around with a nice piece of wood with a hole drilled in it, because that's just what some people do. Moving on, steering wheels, and they really didn't make them in the nicest condition, and yeah, but luckily you can throw a tough wheel on just about any Chrysler. Interior plastics. I think the interior plastics, especially, I mean, this car's from the north, and as you can see that they're somewhat decent, but they all fade. And one thing to keep in mind is, especially for that back window over there, they had Premier tops, which were the half vinyl top cars. Now that has a different interior piece. So where that one is the whole triangle window, the Lando top cars will have a different interior panel. So if you want to put louvers on your car, you're gonna have to change the interior panels. All right, now we can talk about probably the second worst problem plaguing these cars, and that is the grills. These grills are made out of the finest of cheap plastic, ABS to be more specific, and you can all imagine what plastic does after 43 years of sitting in the sun. It breaks, it cracks, it gets really brittle, and it doesn't last. And unfortunately, most times the grills are worth more than the cars. Especially there's the 1978 to 79 Plymouth Volare grill. those ones you'd be hard pressed to find a decent one for under 800 bucks, unfortunately. Now the earlier 76, 77 Aspen grills, those ones actually tend, in my opinion, to hold up a little bit better. That's what this style is. Those ones are a little bit more rigid, and they don't have the hood coming in around them to give them so many stress cracks. So, but yeah, keep that in mind. Grills are not easy to find. No one makes them, so you're relying on trying to find another 43-year-old one or pay up for NOS. So, unfortunately, that's just the way it goes. There's no factory 360 cars that have a factory 4-speed, so keep that in mind if you're ever looking at something. There's no factory 360 4-speed cars. There's none made. Don't anybody tell you different. 318s had the optional 4-speed, and the slant 6s did. And what they put behind them was an aluminum case A833 which was a 3-speed with an overdrive. And they did not like living behind a 318 2-barrel, let alone a 364 barrel or 362 barrel. So don't let anybody tell you that they got a factory 364 speed one. They didn't happen. That's more stories and stories. But yeah, you can get a slant 6, get a Super 6, 318, 2-barrel, 360. So you got some engine choices. Rear ends, the slant 6 cars, except for the slant 6 wagons, all came with the 7 1/4 rear end. It's a very small rear end, so if you're doing gonna hop up your slant, or you're going to do a V8 swap, I'd recommend switching over to either a 60s B body 8 3/4, or I'd find an 8 1/4 out of a VAF body or a MFJ body. That, you know, Fifth Avenue's, Diplomats, Muratas, they all came with 8 1/4 rear ends, so you'd luck out and get one with a 270 rear end, or maybe a 323 if you're lucky. But so rear end, and another thing I wanted to address was the leaf spring issue. These cars do not have a traditional leaf spring design. They actually have a front oval bushing, not just a round bushing. And in my experience and others' experiences, the oval bushings, they were supposed to help supplement your ride, you know, give you more Cadillac feel.
Where's the Cadillac?
But after 43 years, they break. The stress of axle wrap actually snaps the ovals, and sometimes you go to, you know, like my Super Coupe, when I was restoring that, I jacked it up and was going to change the rear axle, and it had no intention of changing the leaf springs. And I went to go, you know, set the jack stands on the body and went to go let the suspension settle, and the whole axle and leaf springs together came crashing to the ground. So something else to keep in mind, because yeah, broken leaf springs are nobody's friend. But going along with the leaf springs, the ISO clamps, which were the factory's version of giving you again a more comfy ride for the rear. They had these giant rubber blocks that encompassed your whole leaf spring, and then they had a metal cage that went around them, and they like to rust out. And if you have the 4-pack leaf spring, the ISO clamp mounts the bottoms are actually different than the 5-pack leaf springs. So keep that in mind if you order new leaves and you want to reuse your ISO clamp stuff. If you have a factory 4-spring car, your new leaf springs are going to be 5-spring, so your ISO clamp is not going to work. So most people do a B body swap or C body spring plate swap. It gives you another 1/2 inch up in the air. So, but yeah, just something to keep in mind if you're looking to buy one of these. And the other thing to keep in mind, if you're looking at, especially an RT model or Volare Roadrunner, Super Coupe, or Richard Petty, check the fender tag. Take your little white book with you, or look for your tag numbers so you're not overpaying for possibly a clone. There's a lot of clones in this world, unfortunately, and yeah, that's the sad truth of it all. But look for your A67 package, your A57, your A43. Look for all that. That way you're knowing what you're buying. And you're not buying a Roadrunner that turns out to be a slant 6 vinyl top car. So, but yeah, so that's my how to buy an F-body guide 101. What to look for, and hopefully that will help some of you guys out there when you're looking to buy one of these. They're an up and coming car. I tell you that. They're hard to find parts for, but they only made so many, and only so many survived. So the market is really starting to reflect that. So, but yeah. As always, this is Dutch Guy's Garage. I appreciate you guys watching. If you haven't already, please hit that like and subscribe button. And, hit that notification bell. I'll let you know when our next video is coming up. We always do Aspen Volare content, tin grills, but we have a lot of Aspen Volare. So we always have something to show you guys. Tech tips, all that stuff. So, but it is starting to rain here on this fine Sunday, so I will catch you guys on the next one. And always remember, they don't move until you do. And that's the absolute truth of it.